Well, to that end, you know, what you do if you suspect that a friend is in an abusive relationship? What should we do?
Like we said, first believe them,
Yeah.
and then you know, become informed, get information, gather information. You could always call us, go to your local campus counseling, get that information for them, and then when they're ready and they ask for that help, you will be informed to help them, and then assist them any way you can in seeking that help. Definitely.
And as a friend, I think it's important, Fredia, you said, you know, when they're ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an important piece. As onlookers, we often want a victim to leave the relationship far earlier than they're ready to. And so I think it's important for us to do all the things that Fredia said, to be informed, but also be patient in that, so that the person who is our friend knows that we want to support them, but that we're also willing to be patient with them and be an advocate when they're ready for that. That there's help available, but it needs to be on their timeline.
Right. Don't just try to fix it, because sometimes it's just not that easy.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, is it best to confront the abuser or not at all?
No, a lot of times when abusers are confronted, they may become violent because that power and control is taken away from them. So no, that's not what I would suggest doing. You know, work with the victim, and then the abuser can seek services if needed.
Yeah, and most police departments, I know we work with the Bristol, Virginia Police Department, and I know that in Tennessee it's no different.
Right.
Most police departments have an officer who is designated for domestic violence or dating violence relationships that could also be a resource if it gets to the point where someone's ready to leave a relationship. There are people who are willing to help that happen, to make sure that it's a safe experience for both the victim and for the abuser.
Yes, we go over safety planning if someone was to call our hotline and wanting to leave the situation, because sometimes that can be one of the most dangerous times, is when they leave the relationship, because it's taking that power and control away.
Absolutely.
So we go over their safety plan with them and ensure that they are completely safe in leaving that relationship.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Red Flag campaign.
Yeah.
What exactly is that, and you know, how is it relative to college-aged people, here on campus or in general?
I think the Red Flag campaign was started by college students. It was funded, I believe, by Verizon Foundation, and a group of college students got together. They conducted surveys, and through those surveys, they established that the college-age student is more willing to do an intervention program rather than, after the fact. They'd rather have an intervention. They're more willing to stop the violence. So that program was developed, and it is a series of steps and tools you can use in teen dating violence. There are posters that you can go on redflagcampaign.org, I think it is, and you can go on there and get the additional information that you need for posters and different things to put about your campus to kind of make people more aware of the program.
Yeah, and if we know that college students are an at-risk population, that age group is very at risk.
Yes.
What we also know is that college students talk to other college students before they're going to talk to an agency or a community member or a professor necessarily. And so part of the goal of the Red Flag campaign is to encourage college students to not only participate in help-seeking behavior for themselves, but also to seek help for a peer.
Yes.
And so that intervention can happen not only among peers, but if I'm worried about a friend of mine, the Red Flag campaign helps me become aware of what to do to get help for my friend.
Right, and you talked a lot about the information that Red Flag gives out. We live in a society dominated by Facebook and the internet. With this information readily available, have you seen the numbers go down or up with as in regard to abuse? What are we seeing these days?
Numbers are so funny.
Yeah.
Because numbers of our hotline calls could go up, but that doesn't necessarily mean that abuse is going up. It might mean that help-seeking behavior is going up. And so I think that, I can't speak necessarily to local numbers, but what I can say is that as people become more educated, as we affect their knowledge, that's going to eventually affect their behavior. So somebody at Northeast State might get the information about Red Flag campaign this week, and then in a couple of years use that information with a sister or a friend or a brother or somebody who's in a relationship. So I don't know that our numbers have significantly
Right.
changed, but each person who contributes to that number, each person who seeks help, either did so because the abuse in the community has gone up or because help-seeking behavior has gone up.
Right.
I prefer to think that help-seeking behavior has gone up.
Exactly. We just want to continue education and try to decrease those numbers over time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, how can we become involved, in supporting the Red Flag campaign? What's the first step, and what are all the steps actually?
Well, go online,
Yeah,
Red-
definitely go online.
redflagcampaign.org. Contact the Nona Shepherd
Yes.
is an English teacher here on campus, and she's been very instrumental in putting together activities for April, which is April's Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and so that's one of the reasons this is coming up now. Nona's been very helpful in getting that information together. The Sue at the Student Health Center
Yes.
has been helpful and has some information. The Counseling Center has that information. And of course, the Abuse Alternatives or the
Yes.
Crisis Center, we're always available to help folks plug in wherever they are. So if there's a student here on campus who just wants to know what their local resources are, either one of us would be glad to help with that.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
Well, going back to the myths and the realities of abuse, sometimes the myth is that, men are the aggressors all the time, or the abusers. I mean, have you seen a rise in female abusers as opposed to being on the receiving end?
I don't know if there's a rise or an increase. Statistically, typically the male is the abuser in the relationship, but I haven't really seen any data that tells me, that that's changed drastically over the last year or so.
I know that we've heard a lot about, the movie came out a couple years ago, Mean Girls.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard a lot about aggression in young women increasing. And so I think that over the next several years, we might see a rise in dating violence perpetrated by females. And I think what's important to remember is that in our society, it still is any kind of interpersonal violence, whether it's dating violence or sexual violence, is still perpetrated predominantly by men, predominantly against women. But that certainly doesn't mean that there aren't women who are abusers, or that men aren't abusing each other, or that girls aren't abusing each other. If you've ever stepped foot in a middle school hallway, you know that girls are very mean to
Yes.
each other, and that's going to exacerbate as they get into relationships and things like that. I think the key message is, if you find yourself being abused, there are people who want to help
Yes.
keep you safe, and help you practice relationships that will be healthy for you in the future.
And back to the media, have you seen an increase in violence due to video games or movies, like Mean Girls? Or
Yes, I know through some of our community education programs, we do bullying, cyberbullying, and a lot of the things, whenever you ask the children, where did you hear that? Or they say something, you ask where they heard it. It was on TV or, through the media, or they'll be upset because someone put something on a social network that upset them. So you see a lot of things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is there anything you'd like to say in close, either of you? I mean, we'll go with you, Ms. Weaver, first. Is there anything you'd like to close with?
Just that abuse is never the victim's fault. If not doing laundry meant I got hit, it'd be bad news for everybody. Abuse is never the victim's fault, and there are people who want to help folks who find themselves in a situation where they are being abused.
Ms. Toombs?
Yes, there are services available if you feel that you are in an abusive relationship, and don't fail to seek those services if needed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you both for being here today. Thank you. We'll be back in just a moment to wrap up Direction Northeast.
When you earn your GED diploma, the barriers in your life fall. Earn your GED diploma and begin your brighter future.
That concludes the program for today. We learned about the nature of abusive relationships and the Red Flag campaign. We thank our guests, Laura Weaver of the Crisis Center and Fredia Toombs of Abuse Alternatives. Community is very important to the students at Northeast State Community College, and this program takes a look at a few of the subjects they find important. Until we meet next time, on behalf of the students, staff, and faculty of Northeast State Community College, I'm Chris Mitchell, and this is Direction Northeast.